When do I finally stop sucking at Noita? That's a question I've been asking myself for about 70 hours now, and the answer is today. Because in this video I'm finally going to step up my Noita game and become the god of destruction I'm destined to be. Well, at least that's the plan. At this point I've beaten the game a total of 2 times, once normally after 196 runs and once in a pacifist run. But in all of my attempts I was so laser focused on the objective I've set for myself that I neglected one of the most important aspects of the game: exploration. And since I still refuse to look up any guides or wikis, that's about the dumbest thing I could do. Luckily, I have you guys. The amount of helpful comments that you posted under my previous videos is just staggering. And among all of your advice, there was one name that kept popping up again and again: the alchemist. I've never heard of this guy and had absolutely no clue where to find him, but apparently killing him is the way to finally unlock Noita's true potential, since he's the guy that drops the fabled Greek letter spells, which I can just assume turns my wands into unstoppable weapons of mass destruction. At least that's what I'm hoping for. But before I can actually get my greedy hands on them, I first have to find out where the hell he's even located. And after scouring through some comments and even solving a full-fledged riddle, I was pretty sure I had to go west past a huge tree. There was only one problem: I have never even attempted to get over that thing, and as it turned out, doing so was a whole mini challenge in itself. Not only could I not bomb ledges into the tree to rest on, but every time I went back down, a horde of eyeball enemies was already waiting for me. So I decided that I should probably head into the mines first to actually get some useful wands and spells. And to my surprise, I actually managed to find some decent early game wands pretty easily, even if I wasn't always the first to find them. But I just handled it like the Brits, took them anyway and called it cultural acquisition. After a while I stumbled across the collapsed mines. Based on your comments, that's supposed to be one of the ways to find the alchemist. But since I couldn't see jack shit and my HP was already pretty low, I figured moving on was the smarter play, especially since I had no idea how strong this alchemy guy actually is. In the first holy mountain I lucked out and picked up the exploding corpses perk, which also makes me immune to explosions. Almost like Noita saying, "Here buddy, you'll need this." And the fact that I'm even thinking of this speaks volumes on how many times Noita has already kicked my ass. I also made myself a drilling wand after finally realizing that doing a Noita run without one is the equivalent of trying to deep sea dive with a straw and a lot of optimism. The coal pits weren't too eventful, and other than finding a new main wand which had the concentrated light spell on it, there's not much worth talking about. The next perk I picked up was the telekinetic kick, because even in Noita getting hit by a 500 kilo statue in the face will kill you. Shortly after entering the snowy depths, I found a wand equipped with a homing modifier, which after combining it with a rock spell in my pacifist run became one of my all-time favorites. So I made sure to take it with me. This whole time I was wondering if I was yet equipped to face the alchemist, but after getting nearly sniped out of existence, I reluctantly made my way to the next holy mountain to, you know, heal myself back up and modify my wands a bit. Now I know I still have to learn a ton more about wand building, but at this point I was so confident in my builds that I thought to myself, I bet I could clear one more biome. Oh, and I also picked up the permanent shield perk for some extra protection. And believe me, even I'm a bit surprised, but I was genuinely having a very decent run through the Hezi base. I didn't take that much damage and was able to consistently even kill larger groups of enemies. Unfortunately, my high didn't last too long, since I forgot that blood is indeed a liquid, and liquids conduct electricity, which makes firing a lightning spell in blood a very bad idea. But of course, that's exactly what I did. So you know the drill, off to the next safe room to heal back up. Except that it wasn't so safe this time around, because it seems my mere presence alone was enough to anger the gods and summon Steve to kill me. But after 2 fireballs to his face, he decided to turn into sand and even left me some gold to go shopping. And immediately after that I found out that what actually angered the gods was one of those giant spider things that just wanted to say hi. Hello buddy. Next I re-rolled the perks because I didn't vibe with any of them. Twice. And since I can't afford another reroll, I had to pick the projectile slower, which slows down every projectile within its radius. Not the perk I had wished for, but I think I can make it work. I then went on to buy the large firebolt and experimented a bit with the hollow X spell to see if I could cook up something useful. But in the end I just kept my wands as they were and decided to finally make my way back to the surface to look for the alchemist, since that's kind of the whole point of the video. To make the ascent easier, I let the holy mountain collapse to save myself some digging. But of course Noita had to throw in one last enemy, enemy which took 60 HP off of me like it was my lunch money. I was really hoping that by the time I made my way back up I would have a decent drilling wand, but it's just pain all over again. Back at the Hezi base I found a wand stacked with magic guard spells which, as it turned out, would end up being the most important find of the entire run. But for now I just picked it up and went on. Going back through all the previous biomes wasn't much of a challenge and most of the time was spent digging anyway. So let's just skip ahead to the big tree because that's where things actually get interesting again. You might also notice that my HP is down to 72. Yeah, I took a bit of damage on the way back up, but I'm sure that won't come back to bite me. Right? And since I finally have a wand that can penetrate the tree, climbing it was as easy as killing Hamis in the mines. Upon reaching the top, I saw the pillars of achievement you guys told me about for the first time. Pretty neat actually. There's even one of those music box things up here, though I still have no idea what they actually do. But hey, it adds to the vibe. But I'm not here to pat myself on the back or solve some music related puzzles. I have a mission. So let's move on. The biome past the tree is called the Snowy Wastelands and apparently the air feels freezing out here. I'm sure this is relevant to some aspect of the game, but I have no clue what that aspect could be. A few steps further I pick up a laser shooting eye which, while looking pretty cool, I don't really have any use for now. As I wandered further into the wastelands, I then came across a part where the snow layer was so thin I could even see part of the mines beneath it. And since you guys told me that finding the alchemist was also possible by going through the mines rather than over them, I was pretty sure I would find him down there. But it was also my first time being on this side of the overworld, so I figured I might as well just poke around a bit longer. You know, before committing to blindly digging into potential death. A solid minute of running later, I discovered an essence eater that in my opinion just looks like a tiny mini orb just floating around, and since I couldn't pick it up and had no idea what they're used for, I left it. Little did I know at the time that I would discover their purpose soon enough. Another minute of heading west goes by and I end up standing at the edge of a steep cliff. The kind that just screams, you're probably not supposed to be here, but hey, see what happens. But I was not just going to blindly jump into the void. This is Noita. If there's an empty pit, there's probably misery at the bottom. So instead, in an attempt to be unpredictable for the game, I crossed the chasm and made my way down from the other side. But I immediately noped out after seeing the enemies down there, since I didn't want to risk my run here. A few of them still chased me, but luckily my homing fireball handled the situation for me. I then stumbled across another music thing. You know what, this is getting ridiculous. I'm looking up the names of these. Music machines? Really? As I was saying, I stumbled across another music machine, but this time it stood on an altar with an eye symbol on it. And since I conveniently picked up an eye a couple of minutes ago, I knew exactly what to do. Destroy the machine with it. That's not going to work, is it? Well, I guess I'll destroy it the old-fashioned way then. After getting rid of the machine, I fiddled around for a bit trying to make sense of the altar, since I literally had the item displayed on it equipped. I waved the eye around and even tossed it, but nothing seemed to work. In a last-ditch effort, I tried throwing it straight up since the eye symbol also points upward, and while I at first thought that this wasn't it, dodging the laser beam of the eye by jumping turned out to be the best thing I could have done here, as it revealed a hidden platform right above me. And I know this is probably one of the easiest puzzles in the entire game, but I was feeling like a genius solving it. So I grabbed the eye and started climbing, ever further up into the sky until I entered the cloudscape, a whole ass biome floating in the sky. And of course I was instantly greeted by a random projectile from off screen. Luckily my shield took the hit, but while trying to get on some solid ground, a crystal enemy smacked me mid-air. And as I tumbled towards the floor like a dropped sandwich, I briefly considered giving the cloudscape another shot. Then immediately decided, yeah, not this run. Just a few steps further I spot the lake, and on it a little island with a wooden hut. Inside, a note from an alchemist. Could it be the alchemist I've been looking for? Maybe. But nobody's home and there's not even a sticky note on the door saying when they'll be back. Now I remember a comment saying that if I ever get to the lake I should bring a tablet, and since there's a tablet symbol on the walls, my guess is that I should probably bring it here. I then explored the rest of the lake, found a wooden figure which I turned into the Burning Man, and then finally hit the edge of the overworld. I feel like I've done enough exploring for now. So I make my way back to the spot where I assumed the alchemist was hiding. I dug through the thin layer of snow and started making my way through the ancient laboratory. The enemies here were no joke, so in hindsight I'm very glad I held off until I had some solid wands and perks. I also found several statues down in the lab that looked suspiciously like the player character. But I'm sure that's just a fun little aesthetic choice. No way there's some Medusa style petrification situation going on down here. Right? Well, whatever, at least they make for great projectiles. Aside from yeeting statues at enemies, my main strategy in here was to shamelessly abuse the always cast electric charge on my wand. Every projectile got juiced up with electricity, paralyzing enemies on hit, which turned out to be insanely useful in a place like this. Thanks to that strategy and my shield perk, which honestly blocked more shots than I deserved, I made it through the laboratory with only a single hit, before an HP bar popped up at the bottom of the screen. Now, I'm no expert in Finnish, but il alchemisti sounds suspiciously like alchemist to me. In preparation for the fight ahead, I emptied my water flask and filled it with berserkium, which was just lying around like it's totally normal to store rage juice next to your front door. A few steps later, I spotted what looked like a big open room just around the corner. In other words, perfect boss fight real estate. I figured my safest bet would be to drench myself in berserkium and spam magic guard to figure out his attack pattern safely and then attack when I see an opening. But what ended up happening instead was definitely not on my bingo card. He exploded out of nowhere, like straight from over 900 HP to 0 in an instant. Okay, let me walk you through the fight and my thought process real quick. I enter the arena and the first thing I notice is that he's nowhere to be seen, so I look for him while constantly spamming my magic guard. Once I find him, he starts throwing these purple projectiles at me and I instantly think to myself, fuck, my magic guard can't block those. So I try to get some space between us and get a vibe for his attacks. He then follows me and this is where I remember that my magic guard also deals damage to enemies. In the 1 or so seconds the alchemist was in its range, he took about 60 damage. I think, great, if I wait for an opening I can maybe fight him by just spamming the spell and fly into him without ever needing to switch wands. And yeah, you saw what happened then. My best explanation is that he fired some kind of explosive spell, hit the magic guard which reflected it, and then got obliterated by his own attack. There was no skill involved, this was just pure luck. But hey, the outcome is what counts. And the outcome is that I finally got my hands on my very first Greek letter spells. I've heard so much about them from your comments and I can't wait to make an absolutely overpowered wand that destroys whole worlds in the blink of an eye. So let's see what we got here. Sigma, Mu, Gamma and Omega. Wait a minute. None of these actually do any damage. They just copy spells and modify them. I thought they're supposed to instantly make me OP. I'm just kidding, of course. While it's true I was a bit bummed out that there was no obliterate everything on screen effect on the spells, I can see how a wand built around them could be super strong. Assuming of course you know how to properly build wands. A thing I'm not really known for, but I will certainly try. For now though I will move on since I can't edit my wands in here. So I hop back to the other side of the tree, grab an emerald tablet and bring it to the old hut at the lake, where upon throwing it, a green portal opens up, and being the overly cautious guy that I am, I contemplate for so long whether I should jump into it or not that it simply disappeared again. Which meant I had to find another one if I wanted to see where the portal leads to. Luckily I remember there was one on the top of the pyramid in the desert. So yeah, let's grab it real quick. And while I'm here, why not enter the question mark area and see if I can make my way through the structure with the drill wand I have. And sure enough, it stands no chance against the luminous drill. Once inside, I realized that this icon was not a spell I could pick up, but instead the essence of earth, whatever that means. But since I'm already here, I might as well pick it up. And upon doing so, I suddenly start to uncontrollably shoot projectiles in each direction, which explode on impact. Oh boy, well I better watch out or I might get myself accidentally killed. Just kidding, thanks to my perks I have explosion immunity and I'm perfectly safe. Ha! Take that, Noita. As I was making my way back, I wondered if shooting explosive projectiles every few seconds would be more of a curse than a blessing, since it could easily lead to unwanted interactions with the rest of the game. But just as I was making my peace with being a one-man fireworks show, I stumbled across an essence eater buried in the sand. And that's when I finally connected the two puzzle pieces. The only problem was figuring out how to actually use those damned things. Luckily the problem solves itself because it turns out I just had to destroy it, which then not only removed the curse but also spawned a stone that turns rocks in its vicinity to dirt when held. I'm sure there are other uses for this stone and most likely there are more of them, but for me it's just a neat tool to help me dig for now. After making my way back to the lake, I threw my newly acquired tablet into the hut and then immediately jumped into the portal. That teleported me into a chamber in the lake where, after killing the enemy inside, I found some skins for my spells? Yeah, turns out that's a thing, but the real treat was that I was able to tinker with my wands in here. which means I could finally equip the Greek letter spells. But I decided to not do it just yet. I mean, just look at this tiny ass room, it just screams underwater coffin. No, I knew I had to get back into a holy mountain and properly experiment with the Greek letter spells. And here we are after way too much backtracking, a fresh, non-collapsed holy mountain ready to become my playground. Now I've got over an hour of footage of me tinkering with wands and trying to figure out how those letter spells actually work. In that time I made a few setups that looked promising and a few others that should probably be quietly buried in the desert. But don't worry, I'm not gonna make you sit through all of my failed science experiments. Instead, here's what I ended up with. For my main wand, I used Gamma to copy the last spell in the wand, a magic missile, and slapped on a homing modifier along with some cooldown reduction. Surely someone with more experience could have built a better wand, but I also felt like the wands I had were really holding me back there. Cause damn, some of those spells eat a lot of mana. I also put together a healing wand with unlimited uses thanks to Omega and kept Sigma and Mu tucked away in my inventory for now. And since I happened to find the underwater breathing perk in here, I knew exactly where I was headed next. The lake. I'm 100% sure there's something lurking at the bottom, because, you know, it's Noita we're talking about. And now I finally have all the tools I need to channel my inner Captain Nemo. Except my submarine is just me holding my breath and hoping for the best. On my way back up, I stumble across some weird fungus, and that's when I remembered your comments about eating a shit ton of them. While I can't recommend this as a real life diet plan, I went all in. The more I ate, the blurrier my vision got until my character could actually taste colors. Then after just a bit more of that magic mushroom buffet, a text suddenly popped up. You feel something has changed. You hear the word acid echoing and shifting in colors. Well, something happened apparently, but it seemed to have no immediate effect on me and I couldn't find any acid nearby to see for myself what that message meant. So I just continued my way back to the surface. And the best thing, the wand worked exactly as expected, firing unlimited homing missiles at a decent enough rate to make me feel just a little overpowered. I even found an upgrade in the form of large magic missiles which replaced my puny normal sized ones. I felt invincible, making short work of even the largest groups of enemies, building new wands as I picked up more spells. It was the first time I ever felt such freedom in Noita. Freedom to go wherever I pleased, knowing I could just heal myself back up if things would get too dicey. And then I reached the lake. I had no idea what was waiting for me down there, but I was ready to find it out. And after one last check of my loadout, I dove in. And since I've never been in a body of water this big before, I figured I would fire off a little test shot. Little did I know, that would go down as the single greatest mistake in my entire Noita career. Of course I'm going to electrocute myself, in a run that's been going for almost 6 hours. You could even see the moment where I realized I fucked up and tried to get out of the water. Well, turns out the real final boss was me all along. As always, feel free to leave a comment and drop some hints about the game to help me out, and also consider subscribing if you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, see you in the next one, bye!